Before we start our session, we have an important announcement. We must keep in mind that COVID-19 is still present in some places.
Señoras y señores, antes de empezar la sesión, tenemos que acordar que COVID sigue entre nosotros en algunos sitios del mundo. Por lo tanto, hay que tomar precauciones para que todas puedan aprovechar el Foro Mundial al máximo. Hay que cuidar uno del otro para que sea una experiencia placentera para todos. Si tienes síntomas de COVID, aíslate. Ten cuidado. Si necesitas asistencia médica, llama 112, como dice tu identificador. El aula se cerrará y no se admitirán más personas en cuanto se llenen los asientos. Señoras y señores, bienvenidos en la última sesión sobre la movilidad sostenible. Vamos a resumir las sesiones anteriores y sacar conclusiones para las acciones declaradas a base del Foro Mundial Urbano. Es europeo, es sesión europea, pero estamos en un foro global. Entonces necesitamos conclusiones globales. Ya conocéis a Ariana y Gerard, que fueron moderadores de las sesiones anteriores. Y antes de cambiar perspectiva para perspectiva global, vamos a hablar de otras cosas porque ha habido miedos. A ver si Katowice es la ciudad adecuada para hablar de movilidad sostenible. Porque tenemos este paso subterráneo horrible justo al lado del foro. Pero es un reto reestructurar toda la zona que fue una zona minera en el pasado. También cuidar del público, de los ciudadanos, para que no caigan en la pobreza. La región de Katowice es Silesia. Yo vivo en Varsovia, pero visito Silesia muy a menudo. Y me encanta la región. Se hizo mucho trabajo para transformar la ciudad y ahora es una ciudad alegre y vibrante. Puede que no sea amor de primera vista, pero cuando empiezas a visitar Katowice, resulta que hay muchos rincones muy bonitos. En cuanto a la movilidad, el plan de la ciudad ha cambiado. Hace 15 años el mercado principal, la plaza mayor, fue muy diferente, había coches y ahora es zona peatonal, que tampoco es tan obvio en Polonia. Pero por el otro lado tenemos este túnel, este paso subterráneo que se acaba de construir hace muy poco. Se hizo en los años 90, cuando el paradigma fue diferente, después no había dinero, después se recibieron fondos europeos y empezaron a implementar planes de los años 70, cuando ya el mundo había cambiado. En la situación actual ya sabemos lo que va mal en Katowice, pero es difícil convencer a los consejeros locales, las autoridades locales, al alcalde, para cambiar el paradigma y la manera de actuar. ¿Cómo debería ser el modelo para los ciudadanos que viven en Katowice? ¿Cómo podemos convencer a los políticos que manejan la ciudad? Empecemos. Gracias por la invitación. Yo no conozco muy bien la ciudad de Katowice, por lo tanto hice una introducción tan larga. Me parece que es algo que concluimos en mi sesión. Hay mucho apetito para los cambios. Y me parece que durante los tiempos de COVID nos hemos dado cuenta de que los cambios no pueden ocurrir muy rápido a veces. Cuando planeamos procesos urbanísticos es un proceso largo y complicado, obviamente. Pero al mismo tiempo podemos hacer proyectos más cortos, a corto plazo, proyectos piloto, para mostrarles a la gente que una realidad diferente es posible.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, and also media friends, a very good afternoon. Dzień dobry. Perfect. Today, UN Habitat is launching its 2022 World Cities Report, Envisioning the Future of Cities. I think very timely, together with the World Urban Forum and our theme, Transforming Cities for a Better Urban Future. This biannual report is an authoritative and true look at the state of the world's cities and trends in urban policy. It provides policy recommendations for sustainable urban development. The launch of the report coincides with the 11th session of the World Urban Forum and our main global conference on sustainable urban development. This year, it is held here in Katowice, Poland, and the forum is co-organized with the government of Poland and the city of Katowice. That's why the minister and the mayor are here together with us in this historic moment. Back in February 2020, when we announced that the 2022 World Urban Forum will be hosted in Katowice, we could not imagine that the world would go into lockdown. The COVID-19 pandemic has altered our cities and created a temporary crisis of confidence in the future of cities. The report estimates that the pandemic has impoverished between 119 to 124 million people in 2022, and this number could be as high as 163 million for 2021. Today, in 2022, many cities have started a cautious return to the way they operated previously. Despite greater incidence of the virus in urban areas and economic hardships, people are still coming back to cities in search of employment, education and training, and also taking refuge from conflict. Cities are here to stay, and the future of humanity is undoubtedly urban. This is one of the main conclusions of the reports. The flight from cities to countryside due to the pandemic will not alter the course of global urbanization. Though the level of urbanization are uneven, rapid urbanization is a mega trend. It was only temporarily delayed by COVID-19. So the global urban population growth is back on track. And we are expecting another 2.2 billion people in urban areas by 2050. The World Cities Report outlines several scenarios of urban future. One worst-case scenario of high damage and extreme poverty. Business as usual, resulting in pessimistic scenario. And the third scenario is returning to pre-pandemic state of affairs and changing course, leading to an optimistic scenario with concerted policy action and effective implementation of new urban agenda. Definitely, we would like to have the last one is leading to an optimistic scenario with concerted policy action and with effective implementation of the new urban agenda. We must start by acknowledging that the business as usual leading to 2020 was an unsustainable model. We must take best lessons from our responses to COVID-19 and create a better, greener, and more sustainable urban future. UN Habitat advocates for the optimistic scenario and believe that achieving equal and inclusive cities must involve a new social contract in the form of universal basic income, universal health coverage, and universal housing and basic services. The new urban agenda created by UN Habitat and endorsed by the UN General Assembly in 2016 provides a broad framework for urban policy that encourages the integration of all elements of sustainable development. To conclude, I would like to thank UN Habitat staff, our researchers, our writers, our editors, and technical support who work on this report. I'm also grateful to the authors of the chapters and the external contributors, as well as our International Advisory Board for their efforts and input into this research. This is our World Cities Report, not UN Habitat alone, because we incorporate and we engage multi-stakeholders in preparing this report. So I would like to encourage governments, city leaders, urban planners to use this report as a reference and guidance when they are developing and designing plans and policies for their cities and towns. Thank you for your attention. Jen Kuye.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Director. And now I would like to give the floor for the statement for Madam Małgorzata Jaroszyńska-Jedynak, Secretary of State at the Ministry of Development Funds and Regional Policy of the Republic of Poland. The floor is yours, Madam.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be addressing you today and talk about two major documents. Cities are us. Cities are the people who live in them and who create them. Cities, like us, need to change, to grow, to develop. And actually, it's best if this development was well advised, was well prepared, because good management, good governance means that we make analysis, we draw conclusions, and then we create visions and make plans for the future. Today, on the table in front of us are two major documents. First of all, there is the World Cities Report 2022 and the Polish National Urban Policy. The development of both these documents was preceded by thorough diagnoses and analyses. In spite of a different scale and scope of these documents. Both actually refer to the major challenges of today. These are the alarming inequality, the alarming imbalance, ecological imbalance, social issues, economic problems, the digitalization process. All these important challenges, however, are inscribed into growth scenarios which we can follow depending on how the events will unfold. Our Poland's national urban policy indicates solutions that we need to take here and now to improve the life quality of our citizens. These are the scenarios which hark back to what we see in the World Cities Report 2022. I really was interested in these scenarios because they are all the more meaningful in the context of predicting megatrends for the future. In our Ministry of Funds and Regional Development, we are developing a document currently which is meant to launch long-term planning, and which is going to have long-term scenarios and responses to the challenges identified in the 2022 World Cities Report, envisioning the future of cities. One other issue I would like to highlight is that the report speaks about coordinated, cohesive planning, urban planning, including the area of housing. This is extremely important, and this is also part of Poland's national urban strategy for 2030. We know that the city of today needs to relate to its functional area, and ultimately the 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic and the rapid development of digital technologies show that city dwellers seek alternatives. They want to have a good quality life outside the city, and it is the combination of the city with its environs, with its outskirts, that calls for great urban planning, functional planning, so that we may meet the expectations of city dwellers, which are very important, and the COVID-19 pandemic has shown this to us. That's why we need systemic solutions, which have been indicated as the best case scenario in the World Cities Report. The document actually indicates a number of other important issues which have a big impact on the pace of urban processes. We must notice tendencies such as growing inequalities, technologies, health issues, or the building of resilience and city governance. Also the governance of functional areas I spoke about earlier. It is thanks to these documents, and especially the 2022 World Cities Report, that we can speak about the challenges and the diagnosis that we need to make in the future. We need to compare these challenges that Poland is facing now, and this is a major issue that will be very helpful for us, because it helps understand the path that urban development follows. We need to understand the root causes. We need to plan well the action we want to take in the future. Today, the time has come to really implement. I encourage you to read thoroughly the World Cities Report and to simply follow its recommendations. Thank you.
Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Mayor of Katowice, Pan Marcin Krupa.
Bardzo serdecznie dziękuję.
Thank you so much, Honorable Secretary General, Madam Minister, ladies and gentlemen, all our friends present at this conference. First of all, I'm extremely glad that we have yet another document which will help us, city leaders, city mayors, in our urban governance. The document wants urban spaces to become even more friendly towards our residents. The identification of the many and varied problems we are faced with are very important. We need to stress that the challenges are the same, but the problems might have a different scale. Our action should also, therefore, be diversified. There is no one size fits all solution. However, I think we fully agree with some 6 key issues: 15 minutes city actions that are to make sure that residents have a higher quality life. All the basic services should be provided within a 15-minute radius of the place of residence. Together with the minister, we have already worked on 11 thematic zones in Katowice. We can talk during this conference, we can learn a new culture, we can learn cultures of the world, and these zones are within a 15-minute radius. This is what we want to implement in our cities. It's very hard, though, because the 15-minute city does call for a lot of spending. We need to provide all accessibilities in a given space, which is to follow the principles of a 15-minute city. Inevitably, our cities in the future are going to be even more populated. This is something that the Secretary General has indicated. Within a short time, in 2050, close to 70% of the world's population is going to live in cities. This is a huge challenge, and our cities need to be able to bear the burden of additional residents. All we need is not only a resilient and efficient governance of cities, but also we need to have solutions in place from the world of business to make cities more comfortable, more friendly for the residents. I believe that the process of digitization in the city, of making the development of cities more compact, I think this was somehow enforced on us by the COVID-19 pandemic, by the climate change issues, something that we are currently experiencing in the city. Temperatures in excess of 30 degrees Celsius are, you may say, well, limited to summer, and autumn and spring is we have more mild weather. However, we didn't used to have as hot summers. We see that climate change does affect Poland. We have very extreme weather conditions, either very hot days or very, very cold ones. We know that we need to increasingly be able to deal with these issues because unless we stop the process of climate change, unless we reduce gas emissions, unless we get involved in green action, we are going to face even bigger problems in the future. Once again, I'm really grateful for the document, which is a roadmap for us as city leaders, which we are going to use to mitigate the bad effect, the adverse effect of climate change, and of how to create good premium living conditions for our dwellers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Krupa. And now I would like to give the floor to one of the authors of the report, and Ben Arima from UN Habitat. He will also expand a little bit on the key findings and the key policy recommendations of the report.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues and delegates. I will like to thank the ED for her presentation because she has made my work quite easy. So I will try to elaborate on what she has on her presentation and try to tease out some of the issues covered in this report. Of course, the time here is quite short, so this is a press launch, and we'll have the opportunity to have regional and global launches of the report. Just as a means of, in terms of introduction to support what Katrina said, the World Cities Report is Habitat's main flagship report. It serves as the main vehicle for the global reporting on sustainable urbanization trends at the local, national, and global levels. And the report also helps us to assess and report on urban conditions and trends, including progress in the implementation of the new urban agenda, the SDGs, and other internationally agreed goals relevant to sustainable urbanization. What is the aim of this report? COVID was a main force that necessitated this report. So what this report seeks to do is that it seeks to provide greater clarity and insights into the future of cities based on existing trends, challenges, and opportunities, as well as the disruptive conditions, including the valuable experience and lessons from the pandemic. And the report proposes a state of informed preparedness and provides us with the opportunity to anticipate change, to correct the course of action, and become knowledgeable on the different possibilities and scenarios on the future of cities. The report suggests ways that cities can be better prepared to address a wide range of other shocks apart from pandemics and the transition to sustainable urban futures. One of the questions that we tend to address in this report is that if we are to face another shock, another threat, are cities well prepared? Are they well equipped? So these are some of the things that we try to address, and we try to ensure that cities are well prepared to address these shocks and also transition to more sustainable urban futures. This report was prepared over a 16-month period, and it entailed over almost about 95 colleagues, consultants, and partners across the world. And as had been indicated, the report was prepared to coincide with World Urban Forum and also provide the overarching background document for the forum to define the dialogues, the sessions, and as we see these are taking place. I want to acknowledge the financial support of the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy, the government of Poland, for their generous support for preparing this report. We are very grateful to them for that. I will try to elaborate very quickly on some of the key findings. One of the key findings, we try to identify scenarios of urban futures. We do not seek to predict the future, but we want to identify possible scenarios. As the ED had indicated, we have three possible scenarios. We have the high damage scenario, we have the pessimistic scenario, and we have the more optimistic scenario. And all these are well documented in Chapter 1, and all these, they cut across the various chapters of the report. In terms of the high damage scenario, we refer to the high damage scenario where the effects of COVID continue unabated for quite some time. And again, this has further been exacerbated by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, which has reverberating effects all over the world in terms of rising cost of living, high inflation, high food costs, high energy costs, and also increase the cost of borrowing. And if we continue like this, what it tells us is that poverty could increase by 32% or by low prioritization of public health, as we saw, which was one of the impacts of COVID, because the low prioritization of public health was an exacerbating feature of the pandemic. And then we also have entrenched digital inequalities. And all these collectively undermine the vision of achieving inclusive, resilient, and sustainable cities where no one is left behind. And if we continue on the current path, that is business as usual. Right now, we have about 1.6 billion people living in, or 20% of the world's population living in inadequate housing, of which 1 billion resides in slums and informal settlements. Then, of course, we have the optimistic scenario, and that is what we seek to achieve in this situation. Of course, the optimistic scenario will be characterized by the three features of the transformative commitments of the new urban agenda. And we can achieve this through concerted action in terms of effective implementation of the new urban agenda, which is the framework for achieving the SDGs. And with this, we'll be able to avoid a high damage pessimistic scenario. And this scenario, that is the optimistic scenario, involves collaborative, well-coordinated and effective interventions at all levels of government, including relevant partners and stakeholders, and where they are able to leverage on the opportunities and address the challenges of urbanization. Yes, I know that our scenarios will be criticized, but these are qualitative scenarios because they are not discontinuous, but they are continuous. Even within a particular country, in a particular city, we can have all these scenarios playing out simultaneously. One of the things that the report also proposes, the report proposes several pathways to sustainable urban futures. In other words, what can we do? It's not a cookbook, but it's more or less, these have to be contextualized within various places. So they have to be contextualized based on the context. One of these relates to the transformative policies to eradicate poverty and inequality. And we saw that with COVID, poverty had been entrenched and the issue of inequality had also been exacerbated. In fact, the report tells us that some estimates show that about 500 million people had fallen into poverty on account of COVID. And we have varying estimates. These range from about 230 million to about 5 million. So we need policies that will transformative policies to eradicate poverty and inequality. We need to have productive and inclusive urban economies, especially addressing issues of the informal sector and how cities can be diversified, because we saw that during COVID, the economy of many cities were badly affected. We need greener investments for sustainable consumption and production patterns. We need urban planning to be more responsive. Again, COVID revealed the weakness of urban planning in many contexts. We also need the prioritization of public health. Again, this is an area that had been much neglected. And again, COVID brought this back onto the agenda of local governments. We need collaborative and integrated systems of governance. We're now talking about multi-governance. And this, again, was a major feature during the World Urban Forum. We also need inclusive deployment of innovation and technology, because this will be cross-cutting across. And then we need to build resilience across multiple dimensions. And again, all what we are talking about, resilience kind of ties everything together. I will just try, then the new urban agenda can be, again, an integrating framework, because, again, that was adopted during Habitat 3, and that is how we are going to work on cities and to create sustainable cities and settlements up to the year 2036. Then we also have, the ED talked about, this report focuses on the new social contract. We started talking about the new social contract in 2020 when we launched the Cities and Pandemics report. And this report reaffirms that the vision of the future of cities must embody a new social contract in the form of universal basic income. Universal basic income, again, requires employment. How do you employ the most vulnerable? How are they employed and having a viable source of livelihood? It also entails universal health coverage and universal housing and basic services. So again, the report tries to lend credence towards all these. What are some of the key messages? Again, the ED, we have said that cities are here to stay. The future of humanity is undoubtedly urban, but not exclusively in large metropolitan areas. We know that 56% of the world's population currently reside in cities, and this will increase to 68% by 2050, which means an increase of 2.2 billion people, with most of them living in Africa and Asia, and most of them will be found in small-sized and medium-sized cities. Again, the future, this must be an agenda for the future of cities, addressing small and medium-sized cities in countries all over the world. And in chapter 1 of this report, we clearly identify the key issues that urbanization or urban development in various contexts, be it in developed or developing countries, should be addressing. Again, one of the things we note is that the pandemic has resulted in the emergence of a new poor. By 2020, this number increase was estimated to be between 119 and 124 million. And this is projected to have risen to between 143 to 163 in 2020. And if nothing is done, these numbers will continue to increase, and most of them will reside in urban areas. In the process of preparing this report, we worked with our colleagues in the European Union, and they introduced what we refer to as the harmonized definition of urbanization. And one of their findings, which cited in this study, is that most urban expansion of city land area will occur in low-income countries. And again, the land area of low-income countries will grow between 141%, will grow by 141% between 2020 and 2070. In other words, a lot of spatial development will occur in low-income areas. And again, if care is not taken, this might be unplanned. And I'll quickly go through all these so that we can have time to talk more on these. Then we have the issue of urban planning. Again, must urgently pursue climate action as a basis for greener urban futures, in addition to all other issues that urban planning should address. Our report also shows that the diversification of the economy is a critical pillar for economic urban resilience and productive futures. And this also not only the diversification of the economy, also sustainable and innovative municipal finance is fundamental for urban resilience and sustainable futures. Again, during the peak of the pandemic, we witnessed reduction in CO2 emissions. But again, these are now rebounding. And one of the things we noted in this whole report is that the world is losing the opportunity to use the post-pandemic context as a catalyst movement to facilitate investment in transition to net zero carbon emissions. We saw what happened at COP26 in Glasgow. In fact, the intention or the intent or what we see is different from what countries seek to achieve in terms of investment in green energy. Is not consistent with achieving net zero carbon emissions and not consistent with 1.5. Even issues of the $100 million per year to developing countries for adaptation has not been met. So these are issues that need to be addressed. The report also indicates, our report indicates that when cities add the health perspective to urban decision-making, they catalyze far-reaching benefits beyond the absence of disease, and they unlock synergies in multiple sustainable development pathways, including addressing poverty, inclusion, and climate resilience. The issue of governance also is important, and we see that what is happening right now, civil society and participatory processes are under threat, and many cities are engaging in innovative participatory processes. And globally, the space for civil society is shrinking, and state-initiated participation can be tokenistic and is often disregarded in crisis situations. And right now, we witness a situation of global discontent in many areas, as we see right now. Yes, I'll just round up right now. And then the last two things I just want to talk about is that innovation and technology continue to play an increasingly central role for planning for sustainable urban futures. And then last but not the least, building resilience must be at the heart of the future of cities. We talk about economic resilience, social resilience, environmental resilience, including appropriate governance and institutional structures. And this issue of resilience pervades this chapter, the entire report, and focuses on the last chapter. And I would like to seize the opportunity to thank many of our collaborators. Many of them are here, either as our consultants, our advisory boards, and then colleagues that we worked with. I don't want to mention names too many, but I just want to say thank you to all of you for making this, and we hope to have several regional and national launches in the months ahead. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ben, for walking us in detail through some of the findings about the report. And now I would like to open the floor to the audience. If you have any questions or you would like to find more information about the report, you can also go online. It's going to be on the UN Habitat site, and also we are posting it on the site of the World Urban Forum, so you can find it. We will also add it to the application, so you can find the report and you can browse through it. It has a lot of very nice imagery there and illustrations. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will give you a microphone. Can you pass the mic?
I come from Katowice, Portal. What are the biggest conclusions and takeaways for Katowice from the report? Well, the conclusions and takeaways are very general. They don't only concern Katowice, they concern most cities, and the 6 areas that were highlighted in the report are the bits that we should certainly focus on. The 15-minute city is something that I've mentioned earlier. That is essential at this time. And thinking in terms of 15-minute cities will enable us to create the kind of spaces that will absorb what the statistics say. The 68% of the world's population living in urban spaces. So that is a big challenge. Another big challenge for Katowice is environmental protection, because a good city, a city that is clean and friendly without high emissions, is something that's vital, and that's something that we are trying to achieve. We've been trying to achieve this over a dozen+ years. However, we must step up our efforts now by creating the right environment for people to live in cities, because good quality air translates into health, and actually most circulatory diseases and cardiac diseases stem from air pollution. So we must put a lot of attention on moving away from our legacy heating systems and generally energy sources towards more environmentally friendly, renewable ones, because that is certainly available, and that is something that we can replace our existing systems with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions from the floor? Yes, please, the gentleman over there.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to congratulate the ED, Ben, and Habitat for bringing out this wonderful report once again with high quality precision on data and analysis. My name is Anantakrishnan, Secretary General of Urban Economy Forum. So as the name suggests, we are preoccupied with urban economy and finance. What I'm wondering is that, if we're talking about scenarios, you also mentioned about the New Urban Agenda. New Urban Agenda is a vehicle for the implementation of SDGs. To what extent the accelerating the implementation of SDGs with SDG 11 as a focus will enable a scenario that we can live with? That is something that, I'm just, wondering. Other thing is that you also rightly mentioned the importance of small and medium cities is really forgotten from the global debate. Nearly 20% of the population live in smaller cities and intermediate cities, very often without any facilities, not coming to the agenda of national governments, are being lagging behind. So are there methods by which we could, a process by which we could, enable or remind national governments of the importance of small and medium cities, otherwise without which we won't be able to sort of process further. Third and final question is that, as we have seen after Ukraine and what's happening, the problem of food security has become a major important issue. And here again, urban food security. Very often, urbanization depends on food production from the hinterland. With a lot of land being occupied or taken for urbanization, how does it affect food security, especially in developing countries? So that is something that, as we see, developing countries are the ones that are mostly affected by the food security problem due to the war, even though the war happened somewhere else. This is something that, how do we link it together? Thank you so much.
Can I ask, who do you address your question to? Is it particular or anyone?
To Ben, please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Krishnan. We've worked together before, so we can continue this discussion out here. Of course, small and medium-sized cities are very much important. In fact, the statistics will tell you is that 55% of the population and almost 60% of the population in some regions live in small and medium-sized cities, cities of 1 million and less. And it also tells us that those are the most rapidly urbanizing. The study, I don't want to cite Cities Alliance, but one of the things that the studies that they did during the COVID showed that small intermediate cities can serve as activity nodes between the small cities and the large cities. I think the most important thing for small and medium-sized cities, especially in developing countries, is the need to invest in those cities, to provide infrastructure in those cities. We live in Nairobi, and Nairobi is very congested. And one of the things many colleagues say that if we can improve infrastructure outside Nairobi, if we can improve safety and security outside Nairobi, and our governor is here as well, our governor from Kisumu, if we can improve the services and we don't have traffic gridlock, many people will be willing to live outside at the outskirts of Nairobi. In the case of Nairobi now, the government has built the expressway, which remarkably reduces the distance between the city and the outskirts. I think so. These are ways in which we can connect. And we talk about rural-urban linkages and continuum, and these are areas. Habitat is working a lot in terms of implementing the new urban agenda and accelerating as a means of accelerating the SDGs. We have the SDG cities as one of our flagship areas, and these are areas. Of course, Shipra is not here. This is one of the areas in which he's leading. So, again, our work is geared towards all these areas. Again, without being presumptuous, maybe I can hand over to our ED to say one or two things if she wants to.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you so much for the questions. If you see from the key finding, the 6 key findings, all the findings zero down to cities. The role of cities, either it is metropolitan, either it is big cities or intermediary cities or towns. They are moving toward, because 68% of the global population in 2050 will live in cities. Of course, it's a different category of cities, different size of cities in different countries and different regions. And definitely, when you talk about cities, the SDG 11 is the key. In order for us to talk about inclusive, safe, and resilient, SDG 11 is the key, to me, is the key finding also to this report. Because if you don't make our cities right, then it will be very difficult, because 68% of the population live in city. So if you don't make the cities right, 60% of the global population will be having problem or challenges. So I think that is important. Second is about the link to the new urban agenda. I'm very happy to see that the new urban agenda, one of the framework of the new urban agenda is that each country to come with the national urban policy. I'm very happy that the Madam Minister brought the Polish national urban policy. This is the continuation from the new urban agenda at the global framework to the national urban policy at the national level, at the country level. Then we bring it down to Katowice by the mayor, and the mayor will break down all those proposals from the national urban policy, and then you break it down to the further down to the communities, business sector, the researcher, and all those citizens in the cities. So I think this is very important that we need to implement, we need to accelerate, because we have only around 90 months 2,700 days to reach 2030. So we have no time. So this report is very timely to wake us up, and COVID-19 is a wake-up call for everybody. So we have to move forward, and I hope that the governments and also the stakeholders will use not only the World Cities report, the latest World City report, link it to the national urban agenda, the new urban agenda, and the national urban policy, and localize it at the local level. That's why the UN Habitat's priority, the third priority, is localization of the SDG. If you don't localize it, I don't know where are we going, whether we have any more planet Earth in by the year 2030, that the planet that we really want to see. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have to be very mindful of time because our time is very tight. There is another event and another press conference that is happening here. So I would like to address your questions individually to maybe the authors of the report. You can come and talk to Ben and he can explain more about the report if you are interested. You can also go on the website of UN Habitat and you can see a report and different details, different interesting facts and recommendations from it. So I would like to thank our distinguished panel today, Madam Executive Director Maimuna Motarif, Madam Secretary of State Małgorzata Jarasinski-Jedynak, and Pan Mayor Marcin Krupa, and Ben Arima, the author of the report. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and your support.
Thank you.
And maybe you can take a picture with the report.
With report.
Yeah, with the report.
Report on national urban policy.
Yes, we bring it up. You're very
Yes. Here or here?
Myślę, że przed chyba, przed tym.
The local governments also want to join this distinguished panel and the report, and the governor of Kisumu would like also to join the picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Prof, come. Expensive. Okay, come.
One more.
Came to the middle. One more? Wait.
Thank you very much, sir. I thank you for the wonderful work you're doing in Kisumu. I've been following you when since I've been 17 years ago. I had 17 years ago. Yes, and I knew you were
The telepathy is English.
Because we are tired.
Because we are tired. Yes.
But tomorrow I hope so.
Yes.
Okay.
Today is what date? Today is 29.
June.
Okay.
Did you sign for
Okay,
Kisumu?
yes.
I'm coming. Summary
don't have the pen.
of the report.
I'll wait for it to dry.
The one I presented. I have it. I'll just send it to you electronically because it's just this is just what I have. I'll send it to you electronically. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Don't proceed, yeah?
Yeah.
It's,
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me put the date.
I'm from Brunei, madam.
Brunei, eh?
Yeah.
From Brunei.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're a big fan from
Let me just. India, I think you have a long queue.
Short selfie, madam. Yeah. Thank you very much, madam.
She'll take it to you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your collaboration. Okay.
From Nigeria, ma'am.
Wow.
Thank you. Nigeria. Thank you, ma'am.
For Zbigniew from Poland.
From Poland.
From Poland, yeah. Zbigniew, jakby. Or Zbig. For Martin from Poland, only this, okay?
One more,
Yeah.
please.
For Martin from Poland.
Poland, yeah?
Yeah. Can you take me a photo? Just me. Thank you very much.
You don't proceed because it's the
Yeah.
pen.
Thank you very much.
Authors from the European Commission. We quoted the report. Thank you very much for the yes, great cooperation for the report. We really appreciate that you used our data sets for the report.
My writing.
Sure. Thank you, Director. Also a great birthday present for today. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
To Javed Ali Khan, the HPM Country Program Manager, Pakistan. Javed. Thank you, ma'am.
DD to Mayor Marcin Krupa.
For the mayor.
Yeah. Okay, it's possible to one for me, Marta Chmielewska.